What is going on? How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's having a good day so far. Oregon football just got a lot more interesting, and we're going to talk about that. So, Dante Moore just announced that he will return for another year. So, Dante Moore was a guy who all right, so first he transferred from UCLA. At UCLA, it didn't look good at all. Came over to Oregon, sat a year behind Dylan Gabriel, which I think was a great move. That was a great move for him, and I think everybody would probably agree with that now. He finally gets the starting reins. Looks amazing. Looks amazing all year. He's hyped up in the draft, potential number one pick, and then the playoffs happen. So they get past Texas Tech. You face Indiana. And that Indiana game, I think, single-handedly dropped his draft stock enough to make him want to come back. I would say. I don't think it dropped it tremendously. I still think he probably would have been a top pick. Like, it was a for sure first rounder no matter what. But he's only a redshirt sophomore. He's still very young. I think the right move here is to go back. The right move here is to go back. I think in that national championship game, you kind of showed that you weren't ready. And I think a lot of NFL scouts kind of also saw that you weren't quite ready. Do I think he could get there? I absolutely do. He's shown it already. Just needs a little bit more polishing. Needs a little bit more polishing to his game. And I think if you do stay another year with Oregon, then that's probably going to happen. Now, I'm very interested to see what happens with the recent transfer portal quarterback that you just picked up. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But anyways, I think Dante Moore, like I said, I think he's going to come in and he's going to have a great year next year. I think he's going to be a top pick again. He'll probably go into next year being the lead favorite to go number one next year just because he already had that type of hype this year. But unfortunately, that one game happened, so that did set him back some. But yeah, it was a big speculation whether he would go or come back. But then you think back, even when he was talked about as the potential number one pick, there was still some speculation that he was going to go back to school. So a lot of people were kind of monitoring that situation. Now, you went out and you picked up Dylan Raiola in the transfer portal. What happens here? So I do wonder. Dylan Raiola did say that he was fine sitting behind Dante Moore if he came back because, like I said, there was a lot of speculation already. I do wonder if Dylan Raiola expected Dante to leave, and that is kind of the sole reason they transferred in. And you kind of just have to say at that point that I'm okay sitting behind him. Or is he really taking the same route that Dante Moore took, where Dante Moore came in and sat behind Dylan Gabriel? Is Dylan Raiola willing to come in and sit behind Dante Moore and really learn the system for a year and learn behind a quarterback that's probably going to go very high in the draft next year? I don't know. Because if you look at Dylan Raiola's history at schools, he went to 4 different high schools. This is his second college already. If you look at his recruitment, he was at about 3 or 4 different schools, I believe, in his recruitment, talking about commitments and stuff. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen here. I do think Dylan Raiola will stick around. I do think that I personally do think that was all truth, that he knew, he kind of speculated Dante was probably going to be coming back or maybe be coming back. So you have to kind of accept that if I do transfer in, I have to risk possibly sitting out a year, which personally I think this is going to do Dylan really good things. I think Dylan is a very high ceiling quarterback who we've really seen play in a bad system throughout his career. I don't think that Nebraska system was very good for him at all. I don't think the system fit him. I don't think he fit that Nebraska system. I think he fits Oregon much better, just the way that they play ball over in Eugene, Oregon. So I think that Dylan is going to be much better in Oregon. Is he a national championship winning quarterback? That's to be determined. We don't know. And that is another question I have. Is Dante Moore a national championship winning quarterback? That is another question. Can he lead a team that far? Can he lead Oregon that far next year? Because, Oregon's coaching staff just kind of got ripped apart. Will Stein's gone at Kentucky. Josh Lapoy's gone at, was it Oregon? Wait, Oregon State? No. California. I don't know what I'm talking about. Josh Lapoy's gone to Cal. So, I'm very interested to see what happens with this Oregon team next year. Because when Dante Moore comes back, I do wonder also. Because like I said, he's still going to be a top pick, I'd say, if he did declare. I'm curious to see if his decision was more based on maybe I'm not going to go as high in the draft as I thought. Maybe I do need more development, even though I will go high in the draft. Or I want to come back and win a national championship and really prove a lot of people wrong. So there are a few different routes that I'm kind of thinking Dante Moore is going here. I'm not very sure. Now, when you bring Dante Moore back, I do have a question. Do you think it's national championship or bust for Oregon next year? I don't know. You're returning a lot. You're returning a good bit of starters. You saw um, Mateo Uyunglele just announced he is on the way back. Some other guys on that defense, key pieces on the defense, are coming back. You still have a very good receiver room for next year. Like I said, you're pretty much running it back. You are losing Kenyon Sadiq, which is that's a big target that's gonna hurt. You're picking up some guys in the transfer portal. I like the direction the Oregon is going. I personally like Dante Moore coming back one more year. I like it for him and I like it for Oregon. Now, I do know a lot of Oregon fans are probably on the fence about Dante now, just really based off that last game. I still think he's a good quarterback. You got to trust it. I think he's a good quarterback. He's still super young. I just don't think he was quite polished. I think that he definitely hasn't reached the ceiling. I'd say he definitely has not reached the ceiling. And I think that he just overperformed this year, like basing it off of how far ahead he is in his career. And I think he's going to take another jump next year. I think Dante Moore is going to be a different quarterback next year. I think he's going to be better. I think he's going to lead this team a little further. I think Oregon is going to be one of the teams to watch for. Now, there are some teams that you're going to run into in the college football playoffs, like Indiana, and you're really going to have to figure something out there. Now, the one thing that I will say could hold Oregon back is the coaching staff. I am kind of concerned about the coaching staff since you are losing your big two coordinators. But I, I mean, Dan Lanning has been absolutely amazing at bringing guys in. Like, Oregon's lost their coordinators pretty frequently as of late, and Dan Lanning has brought in guys to replace them very, very well. Dan Lanning is a very good coach at building good personnel. I would say that. Now, if it is national championship or bust for Oregon, back on that topic, there is a big question about Dan Lanning because Dan Lanning has yet to show that he can win the big games. So that is still a big question mark. That is still a very big question mark that I'm curious to see. I'm very curious to see that. And what does that mean? What does that mean for his future at Oregon? I think, first off, let me start this because I think Dan Lanning is an outstanding coach. I think he's an amazing coach. Like, you're still kind of in the middle of a rebuild. Not really. Like, I definitely not a rebuild. So don't take that the wrong way. But you're still kind of fresh in Oregon. Like, you're not completely polished yet, you know? I think Dan Lanning's going to figure it out is basically what I'm saying. I think Dan Lanning's going to figure it out. I think Dante Moore is going to be better next year. I think this defense is going to be very good next year. I'm a big fan of what Oregon's doing. And I don't think that this Oregon team is going to be as bad as some of the outsiders think, because I do see some people saying that this Oregon team is going to take a massive step back. That's not the case. I don't see any world where that's the case. So, yeah, I'm sorry I rambled a lot, but that'll do it for this video. I just wanted to come on here and talk about some of these quarterback targets. Oh, before we do go, I do also wonder with the Dylan Raiola thing. Will Dayton Raiola follow him? Because it seems like Dylan and Dayton are a package deal. It seemed like they were that at Nebraska and really everywhere else that Dylan was going. He's yet to hold an offer from Oregon. He's only a 3-star out of high school, so I'm very curious to see what his market looks like. I think he only holds like 2 offers right now, 2 or 3 offers. So I'm very curious to see if Oregon does offer him. I do think Dylan's going to try and pull some strings to get Dayton in there. I just don't really see Dayton having much of a future at Oregon. Like, I think if, like, once Dylan's gone, once Dante's gone, if Dayton did come in, I don't see him being the guy that Dan Lanning's going to start. But I could see him offering just to bring him in to make Dylan happy. But anyways, yeah, that'll do it for this one. I greatly appreciate you guys. And lots more Oregon content coming as we do hear more about, first, this situation and also more transfer portal stuff from Oregon. So, yeah, that'll do it for this one. I appreciate you guys, and stay tuned for the next ones. Peace.